And when I'm talking about falling behind, now I'm going to talk about both of these teams. It was not good Valorant, to be honest with you. There was lack of abilities being used. It was just like, look at all these body peeks. You're not flashing. You're not reconning. You're just like, he has a recon available for Crow. You have it right there. He doesn't shoot it towards spawn to get information. It's a 2v1 over here. He's not shooting a recon dart to look out. He's just walking out and just getting picked.
Let's talk about some of the other regions here because, you know, we actually still have, I think, what, LATAM or Brazil or one of the regions
LATAM tomorrow
have not decided their actual both teams going to, or their one team rather going to Reykjavik. But let's talk a little bit about Brazil. Now, if you bought it recently, I still recommend you do it because Backchat had an interview with Sacy and one of the other members of this Vikings team. But it was Sharks and Vikings that make it through. Van Silly, you've been doing a bit of homework, mate.
Yeah, I've been trying to catch up on all of the teams that are trying to qualify too, and actually looking at this one, I think this is the lower bracket matchup, right? So this is the lower finals where Sharks are playing against Furia. It was actually a really good series in the end. I think one thing that I could talk about here for Sharks overall as they qualify as that second team is their bind probably needs a little bit of work. I know that they're trying to implement a little bit more Viper into their composition on bind, where I don't think it works out too well there on their defense. They seem to just know where Sadak is playing as that Viper whenever he puts the wall up, and any opposition is able to drop it down. It's no surprise that overall in their record, they're only 50% on bind. But there's one thing that's good about them is that, again, Sadak is actually the key player for that team for Vikings. I think him and Sacy are the two players to look out for that team. Sacy's gonna be like that that Hiko. That's gonna be that clutch player. It's a Sova. He's also very good with his Hunter's Fury like gangsta. And they also have LG's Luminosity Gaming's Tenacity because they're able to come back from an 8-0 deficit versus Furia to actually win that third map. And they got plowed too on the first map. And this is actually the upper finals between Vikings and Sharks, where Vikings winning this series actually got them the victory as the first team to qualify. Sorry, when I was talking about Sadak, I was talking about Sadak for Vikings to look out for, and Sharks in my eyes is Prazin that I would probably look out for, and Tefra as the IGL for Sharks. I got my teams mixed up there at that point. But Vikings, they actually do look very good. Brazil, in terms of Valorant overall, they're just not afraid of fighting through smokes. Crossing toxic screens, just pushing all the way through spawn on pulse plants as well, which is why I didn't see too much Astra going on, but they actually did have composition that had good pulse plants, right? So they had a Viper in the mix, they had a Sova in the mix, they had Raze in the mix, but they didn't give a fuck about playing pulse plant. It was more about just battling entry and taking control of sites. So you're pushing further to the spike plant, and it gets very chaotic, but it works in their favor. It actually works for them.
Does this work against slower styles that want to play post plant though with Viper and Astra? What do you think at this stage?
I think so, to be honest.
Regions. We see it in other regions. It works in other regions.
Yeah, I think it might work again because we talk a lot about the Astra meta and the Viper meta, but we don't really talk about where double duelists could still very much work. Well, like version 1, for example, right? But what I do like about Brazil, and somebody else told this in my chat yesterday too, is that I think it's because of their ping difference or because they feel that you can't control the sprays as much in Valorant. These players actually tap or 2-shot, 3-shot bursts a lot. There's a term for it as well because it's based off MW0's playstyle for game lanners. So they just 1-2 tap everything, even when they play from long range. So you don't expect any type of it gets very snappy. So it gets aggressive, snappy, and very bursty in terms of playstyle.
That's fun.
And it's actually really fun in terms of that playstyle because when we talk about schmeeging and phase and being super aggressive, they're also being aggressive.
They do it best,
but shooting differently. I think it's nice.
Yeah, I think Brazil does it best aggressively out of all the regions, man. If you guys in the chat have not watched Brazil play, fucking do it. It is the most entertaining Valorant you would watch, in my opinion.
Yeah, obviously, it goes to that saying that we look forward to seeing how that style clashes with the rest of the world. So let's talk about Japan. Crazy Raccoons have done it. I think we've talked about this before, but we rehash here because we're obviously taking stock of the teams that have made it through. Yeah. So they play against Absolute Jupiter, who are sort of expected to, go all the way. There's a Yoru in this game, by the way. Yep. Fucking Yoru.
Yes.
But this is obviously Munchkin, and I don't think Zephyr is the person I think it is, but Munchkin's an ex-Overwatch player here.
Yeah.
In a best of 5 here, looks like they get the win, Van Silly.
Yeah, this is a little bit less to talk about, right? Munchkin and Medusa coming from Korea and playing in this roster. They've won Masters 1 against Absolute Jupiter, if I'm not mistaken. Now they beat Absolute Jupiter again to make it into Masters 2 in Reykjavik. So you're starting to see the powerhouse of Absolute Jupiter, unfortunately, not being that powerhouse that we expect for them to be, just like Vision Strikers, for example. So they're falling behind a bit. And when I'm talking about falling behind, now I'm going to talk about both of these teams. It was not good Valorant, to be honest with you. There was lack of abilities being used. It was just like, look at all these body peaks. You're not flashing. You're not reconning. You're just like, he has a recon available for Crow. You have it right there. He doesn't shoot it towards spawn to get information. It's a 2v1 over here. He's not shooting a recon dart to look out. He's just walking out and just getting picked. So the whole series between these two teams, even though you had some matches that went into overtime in the last 2 maps of the series, it was just a ranked game, to be honest. Unfortunately, it was not fun. It was not as entertaining. Not necessarily fun, but it wasn't as entertaining, and it was underwhelming at that point.
Oh, I can't wait for Reykjavik, man.
Yeah. I hope they prove me wrong for sure. If now they listen to this and like,
right?
Fuck this guy, I want to fuck him up during Reykjavik and I'll show it differently. I'd love to see that for sure. But for Crazy Raccoons, honestly, after watching all of these, I think they might be at the bottom.
So let's remind people, of course, that it's not Vision Strikers being sent from Korea.
New turn.
Yeah, man.
Reykjavik here. So New Turn beat them in the semis. I think it's 2-0 as well.
Yes.
Glow very quiet in that match, but then they take a Damwon on and they kind of pound them. I mean, this looks like a closer map at the very least here, but yeah, I mean, New Turn look like the new kings of South Korea in terms of Valorant. This series was pretty competitive and close. I kind of like the top 3 in Korea look really, really tight here. But Van Silly, this is pretty big news for a region and kind of ironic in much the same way as like teams like 100 Thieves and Envy missing out on Reykjavik. It's brutal out there. You know what I mean? It's really about it's not about winning 100 games in a row. It's about turning up on the day.
Exactly.
Damn.
It's definitely about turning up, and it was a New Turn that we saw around the corner, right? That one that jokes up here all day. But yeah, honestly, they're the team that also knocked out Vision Strikers actually going into the bracket. So what I do love about this is that you have Solo and Perry that have been playing together in Counter-Strike as well back then. And Solo is probably going to be the oldest player going into Iceland after winning this and getting a 3-0 versus.
Isn't Flo older than Solo though?
Sorry,
isn't Flo older?
Possibly. Maybe the oldest ex-Counter-Strike player. But another good thing is that Solo actually represented Korea at all the international events that they've played for, and since Counter-Strike. So like Eastro, WNV, or whatever, Solo was always in those rosters. So it's pretty cool that he gets to represent now Korea in a new game that he's pro in Valorant. But the series itself... Yes, go ahead, Veli. I'm talking.
I was gonna say, speaking of Solo, Solo and Perry reminded me so much of like Steel and Nitro on flanks. They're fucking ridiculous. Vance, finish your point though, because I have something I want to say about this match.
No, definitely.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay. For me, it was just to talk about the match itself. I think New Turn actually.
Let's do it.
Yeah, the interesting for New Turn is that they're a team that if on the attacker side they lose piss around, but they plant, they're going to force buy the next round. If they lose piss around and they don't plant, they don't buy. And if they play pistol and they if they play defense and they lose pistol, they don't buy. So they're really counting on the spike plant economy to actually really try to drive the seat of the attacker side. And they're a team that did pretty good in terms of, I think, ability usage right there. I think Suggest is one of those players I think to look out for sure for this roster. He's been a nuisance right now against their opponents in that series. So I think New Turn, overall, they might be lacking a little bit in terms of firepower, but overall, I think it still look pretty good.
I agree. I think that their firepower could definitely be improved. But the thing about New Turn, which really helped them beat Vision Strikers in my eyes, right? This is only my opinion, is that they were really good at baiting utility as well. Like, even when you look at Ascent, the way that they would go to A main and spread out players with Sky and Sova is great with New Turn, by the way. But they would bait out the Astra Stars. They would bait out any type of pulls. They would bait out flashes. And they made sure that What we see in NA when a round starts, Uber and Vance, what do we see? A smoke going out instantly for fake or to block a vision for, just to take away any information you have.
Like mid smokes or something like that.
Yes. New turn, they don't do that. New turn, they save their utility for the post plant. And that is so much more different than what we're used to seeing here in NA as well, right? Because, all right, getting into sight is one thing, but if you exhaust all of your advantages, what the fuck do you have left to fight for, especially in a retake meta, right? So it's like watching them play like that, especially on Ascent, was beautiful. But other than that, their games against Vision Strikers, it was solo, and it was, who was the Astra? It was Perry. Perry is Astra. Yeah. Is my favorite Astra, by the way. The way that he plays to pressure opponents and to play off the flank to be clutch is fucking phenomenal. New Turn is one of my their top 2 favorite in Iceland. I'm gonna be straight up. They're scary. They're actually really good. They have a lot to improve on, but strategically, from what we've seen, they're fucking good, man. And it's not like, oh, they just beat Vision Strikers 2-0. They went on a fucking tear after that, man.
Yeah. And sorry, go ahead, Uber.
Do they play Viper at all? I don't think
I saw.
I don't think so.
I don't think I saw it, but definitely. Because even if you look at New Turn's roster, when they brought Astra out for Perry, it was only for one map anyways. They didn't have him come out for the rest, if I'm not mistaken. They
still have that classic Korean style with like the breach and raise.
Exactly. So that's what I was going to mention too, because they won 3-0, but when we look at their playstyle on Bind and on Split, they were still holding older meta. So they still had like a breach, jet, raise, Omen, and no Sentinel actually. They were playing kind of like FaZe Clan did back then, right? When in that Schmeeg moment. So that playstyle or that agent composition was that Schmeeg playstyle, or probably FaZe got from them, but they didn't necessarily play the same way as FaZe did. They were flashing and getting information for entries, but they weren't playing as aggressively on defense. But that was working quite well, just playing normal. And I think maybe that's where I think New Turn, yes, they're looking good, but they might not have that much of a chance at Reykjavik because I think they're playing one meta behind.
Aggressive teams might have an upper hand against them, but when it comes to methodical thinking, that's when they're the shit. And I really like what they do. But yeah, but Vance, how do you say Reykjavik again?
Reykjavik?
Is that the right way to say it? If I've been fucking up this whole time,
I just sound fucking cool when I say it, so I just say Reykjavik every time.
No, you sussy. You sussy. Why would you be trying to learn the correct pronunciation of Reykjavik, I wonder?
I'm just wondering. He said it's sexy. Van Silly said it in a very exotic way.
Is there a chance that Vance might have to say it on camera?
I don't know, man.
An actual broadcast?
I'm just saying Reykjavik because we've been saying Reykjavik ever since we've been talking about Masters 2, so.
True.
Okay, that's all I'm saying. All right, let's talk about Southeast Asia, because we have a delegate from that region as well that will be competing. And they have been decided. It's going to be X10 that represent that region, featuring a player that I'm familiar with, Patapan, one of the best, probably one of the best FPS players in all of Thailand.
Exactly.
Someone who played alongside Mickey at their World Cup team, and this was like one of the dark horses of Overwatch World Cups. So you can be sure that there's plenty of talent here.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think they looked very good as a team from Thailand that qualified in SCA. My Vietnamese boys didn't go far at all. Crazy guy didn't even fucking qualify into the Southeast Asia. But X10, for me, to be honest, actually looked even better than Japan when I was watching their matchup. So when you're talking about Patapan, that's exactly the player I was going to mention too. There was a lot of rounds that were very close for this team for X10 versus their opponents. But the thing is like Patapan had some rounds as a jet where he's pulling out those knives. I don't think it's as good as like suggests in terms of like the Korean jet, but I think he was still playing very well as a jet and getting like 3Ks and 4Ks to actually save the round for the team and or catch up, take the lead, and win in the end. So X10, I think they might have some victories against Japan, but overall, there's still some work left for them. But I think for a start for stage 2, I'm pretty happy of where SEA is currently developing.
All right.
Yeah, okay. I mean, it'd be interesting to see what like Southeast Asia and Japan bring, because I don't know necessarily if meta is going to be as important coming into the tournament. It'll probably develop its own sense of meta as it goes on. But I think that how you execute and adapt is going to be way more important. Obviously, let's again remind people of how or who rather has qualified. So LATAM hasn't been sorted yet. That's happening tomorrow, actually, by my reckoning.
Yeah, tomorrow 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And what's cool about this is that because LATAM is such a huge region, right? So there's a lot of ping differences, especially LATAM North, LATAM South. They're actually playing their finals on LAN, and that's going to be in Mexico City.
Shit.
Yeah, so that's why there was an issue at first, because I think it was hard to like get through the border or visas and stuff like that too, and COVID times, of course. But now it seems as though everything's Gucci. Both teams are going to Mexico City. They're going head-to-head on land to figure out who's going to Iceland. So that's going to be tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern. So that's going to be fucking cool.
Yeah, that's a dope way to actually send your players to
real World Cyber Games at this point, Uber.
Yep. Basically. Yeah, absolutely. So there you go. So obviously everyone else has decided. So we talked about Raccoons, talked about X10, talked about New Term, talked about Brazil, and obviously we'll talk about NA and EU a little bit. So definitely some upsets though in every region, right? I think we expected to see we didn't expect to see V1 come out of NA. I don't know if we expected to see both Fnatic and Liquid. I think we sort of thought one or the other. I think FPX not making it is pretty unfucking believable.
Of course.
Vision Strikers don't make it.
Of course.
Jupiter don't make it. Yeah, here you go. The VCT disqualified party. Holy shit. J1, Jupiter, NV, G2, FPX, TSM, Immortals, Hunter Thieves, Cloud9. Sheesh!
Dude, I fucking love that's a fucking banger tweet, dude. I love the presence that Vision Striker has in terms of their social media presence.
No.
Like they understand the fucking North American memes right now, and that is even better. You know who's filming that right now? It's a Sentinel. It's a Sentinel organization because they're the ones that actually made it to Masters 1, won Masters 1, and are currently making it into Masters 2. He's just watching this whole party happen.
I mean, I don't think they're dancing right now, but that's a pretty fucking good meme. All right, I'll give them credit for that. Yeah, so that's insane. I think I think we're a long way past this whole. Is Valorant random? Random teams keep winning. What's wrong with my video game?
Shut that shit up.
Yeah. But I think we can look at it more in a positive light, right? I think the competition level's insane. Like look at how V1 stepped up. We'll talk about it a little bit later. I do think though we've seen the spike or the ascension of random teams definitely come at times in polarized metas, right? We definitely saw certain teams look very strong during Stinger meta, Bucky meta, and now with how strong Viper is, right? So I think we would be academically dishonest not to at least mention that, and we can probably mention a few of the teams that have benefited from that. But it is adaptation. It's not just like a flash in the pan or teams just got lucky necessarily. They just understood. It's like trading the stock market. They understood what assets to invest in early on, and they sort of are rewarded for it. I mean, like DHBK or Kuki Koalas now, like just shooting people's faces with the buckies. Like in a different meta, do they really make it as far as they do? Maybe not. And eventually they get slapped down because there's more to, making it in Valorant than just, capitalizing on that meta.
This is where I probably give an even bigger shout out then to Sentinels into version 1 because Sentinels they've gotten top 2 through all of these changes, all the patch changes, new agents coming out. Now they're going to Reykjavik. And then when you're talking about teams that benefit on certain metas, we always meme the fact that version 1 was able to win because of the Bucky meta of how Vanity was able to get everything with the Bucky. But they're another team that fucking qualified to Reykjavik when they actually do have a new meta and a new agent composition, and they adapted with the changes,
right?
With less time too. So I definitely have to give credit to version 1 and how fast they are able to adapt with all of the changes happening in the game so far.
Once they caught up to the rest of NA, they were able to. We saw that like when they got themselves to an even playing field, we realized that they actually adapted faster than the other pro teams.
Exactly.
So obviously it took a while for them to get there, but once they were able to meet a new meta on the same level as like an Envy or like an XZ, we just saw, hold on, these guys are actually faster at integrating these new approaches, and that's also sort of why they won.